Canyon Diablo, Arizona is one of the great unsung legends of the Old West, alternately regarded as an icon of Arizona's blood-soaked frontier territory period by modern mythmakers, or an afterthought that amounted to little more than a single trading post in a pig pen, according to others. By the reckoning of the Arizona Republic, a publication with something of a penchant for categorical disinformation, Canyon Diablo is nothing more than a myth. Quote, "These are stories you want to believe, tales of a town rougher and tougher than anything pictured in blood-filled Hollywood westerns. But stories is likely all they are, originally spun by a dime store novelist turned historian who took it upon himself to be Canyon Diablo's sole biographer," unquote. And here we see the core conflict of Old West history writ large. On the one hand, those who promulgate the myth of the Romantic West as originally derived from dime novels featuring the likes of Wild Bill and Texas Jack, and on the other, those modern historians who dedicate themselves to its dismantlement. Though to be fair, the Republic article being penned by Scott Craven, an entertainment and culture reporter whose lone source in the entire article is the owner of a now-defunct train museum with zero academic credentials to commend him, isn't actually a historian of any description, let alone a revisionist one. And yet his account has colored Canyon Diablo's depiction on YouTube, the blogosphere, and elsewhere.
If there was a town this dangerous, someone would have talked about it prior to the 1960s. Richardson's history of Canyon Diablo came out over 80 years after the bridge was built, and the railroad workers would have moved on.
And the problem with that is that it's just as much a lie as anything Gladwell Richardson ever wrote. So let me tell you a true story of Canyon Diablo, Arizona. One supported by newspaper accounts, crime reports, and even photographs from the era. One which would appear to countervail against the idea that the town was non-violent, let alone that it never existed. A little over 20 miles to the east of Canyon Diablo lies the prospecting town of Winslow, Arizona. Today, a cozy tourist trap off the I-40 known for knick-knack shops and its proximity to the Canyon Diablo meteor crater. But on April 7th, 1905, less than a decade after the events of the Ghost of the Badlands, it was home to the Wigwam Saloon, one of the rougher drinking holes in Arizona territory. Drunks reeled, saloon girls offered their wares, but when outlaws Bill Smythe and John Shaw sauntered into the place, it was the high-stakes dice game in progress that caught their eye. Whether they'd cased the place previously has been lost to the mists of history, but by the time they robbed the game and fled on foot to the nearby train yard, they found their entire take amounted to an anemic $300. Nothing to sneeze at in 1905, but far from the princely haul they were likely expecting. But the westbound train they'd hopped aboard was bound for Flagstaff, too bustling and busy a locale, and one with eagle-eyed law enforcement in abundance. And so they instead stopped in between, 20 miles to the west, at the lawless town the Arizona Republic claims never existed, Canyon Diablo, Arizona. It was the perfect shake-off. Alighting a train at a town known for no law at all, they were effectively phantoms as they set out to escape. Little did they know, however, that their load was light by $5 silver, with which they'd left a trail all the way from the Wigwam Saloon to the train station they'd departed from. And while Canyon Diablo couldn't keep a sheriff for more than 15 minutes, the town of Winslow lay at the effective border between two counties, meaning this legal matter fell to Navajo County Sheriff Chet Houck, with his deputy Pete Pemberton in tow. Following the trail and riding their mounts ragged, they managed to arrive by dusk just in time to question trading post owner Fred Volz as to the whereabouts of the assailants. Already busy spending their loot in the nearby saloons, Arizona newspapers now insist were never built. Volz informed them that two drifters had recently entered on the train, and as they departed the trading post, sure enough, they spied two dirtbags ducking down an alleyway. But Smythe and Shaw had seen their horses at the trading post and guessed their game. When sheriff and deputy rounded the corner, they were met by the raised revolvers of the two desperados. Every man opened fire in unison in a gunfight that went down with the OK Corral as among the most violent in Old West history. A total of 21 rounds in just a few seconds, as cowboys of that era loaded only 5 rounds in their cylinders to avoid a negligent discharge from the saddle. Shaw was the first to fall. Smythe took one in the left leg and dropped into the dirt, but he still had one shot left to fire. Before he could pull the trigger, a shot from Pemberton's pistol ripped through his shoulder. The deputy, disobeying cowboy custom, had loaded 6 instead of 5 and saved the sheriff's life that day. Sounds like ample fodder for pulp novels, no? But this story, albeit exaggerated by local newspapers, happens to be 100% factual. A wounded Bill Smythe would be remanded to Yuma Prison, known colloquially as the Dungeon, and Shaw would be buried in a shallow grave. And in any other town or territory, that's where the story would stop. But Canyon Diablo, Arizona is not any other town. A group of local cowboys known as the Hash Knife Gang were enjoying a drink in Winslow only a short while later when the bartender let slip that the robbers, before bailing, never knocked back their last drinks, most likely out of nervousness. And so, with a morbid sense of humor which is their wont, the Hash Knife Boys bought a bottle of whiskey and set out for Canyon Diablo, intent on serving Shaw his last sip of spirits. Utterly committed to the concept, they dug up his corpse, discovering in the process a grisly smile affixed to the outlaw's features due to rigor mortis, and served him his final shot. They just so happened to snap several non-existent pictures of the non-existent corpse in the non-existent cemetery from the non-existent shootout in the non-existent town, all of which was recorded in non-existent articles in the non-existent newspapers. Quick question, cowpokes. What's the reverse of Mythbusters? Did Canyon Diablo exist? Should the Canyon Diablo shootout stand alongside Wyatt Earp's legendary encounter at Tombstone? Is the Arizona Republic fit for wiping feces from your dumper? You can saddle up soon and parse the fact from the fiction when the ghost of the Badlands rides onto your bookshelves very soon.